Hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for coming to our annual South Texas Ceramic Showdown. This is our 11th year doing it, and each year we like to do something fun on the first floors. And so Mr. Joe Peña from Corpus Christi, he's a painter instructor at Texas A&M Corpus. He actually was one of the first people to get, when they started their master's program, they called him and said, will you come be our first graduate? So he graduated from Texas A&M. He was an instructor of the upstairs artists, Gregory Teagarden and Amalia Calhoun. This is his recent body of work, the food truck series at night. And he began with the food paintings that slowly transitioned. He's in the collection of Cheech Marin and many others. Welcome, Joe Peña.
Oh, thank you. Well, first of all, I want to say thank you to Gina and South Texas College for allowing me to come down here and be a part of this. And they're not here, so I can say this, right? And big thanks to Gregory and Amanda for letting me impede on their ceramics event. So don't tell them I said that, though. But welcome. So I just want to talk to you about my work and kind of the evolution about the work in itself and where it started. But yeah, I'm originally from, maybe some of you know this, Miranda City. Does anybody know that? It's about 30 minutes west of Laredo, and it's my family, I grew up there until I was young, and then we moved to Corpus Christi, and then started really getting interested in the arts, and then moved to New York City. And so I was in New York City for 10 years, and while I was there, I started learning a lot about more traditional painting practices, and then came back down to, as Gina had said, to be the first MFA in painting. So it was something that I hadn't really thought about, because I never thought I'd come back down, but I love it. It's hard to get it away from you, it's hard to get it out. And so, as a result, I've been embraced back into the culture, and it's just been wonderful. And I'm not just talking about the Hispanic culture, I'm talking about South Texas, the deep South Texas that we all know, and it's just been wonderful. But I'll tell you about some of the work and the progression about where it started. The work really began when I was doing a body of work based on meats. And that came about because it was I was bored in my studio, and I couldn't figure out what to do. I was completely, the writer's block, I had the artist block, and I couldn't figure out what to do. And right about that time, I used to go visit family and friends in New York. And so when I went to go back and see some friends, I went to go to the Metropolitan and went to go to the Dutch and Flemish area of painting, the collection that they have there. And so I was taught traditional painting, and I was looking at the work, just falling in love with it, and then all of a sudden, because they have a series called After the Hunt, where it's about banquets and et cetera, so I was really loving that. I said, if anything, I'm going to practice doing some meets. If anything, it's going to help me make some better portraits, And so I started working with that, and I went home the next day, went straight to HEB, got a big old hunk of meat about this big. I think it was like rump roast or something, and went straight to the studio and started making work, and so I don't know what was going to happen with it, but I set it up at 8 in the morning, and I started to just move the light around, make some drawings, some paintings, some sketches. I don't know what I was going to do. It was just fun, Did that all day until about 8 o'clock. Wrapped it up, put it in the fridge. Next day, did it again, Came out, put it down, watercolors, oils, sketches, everything for another 4 days. Next day, pulled out again, and was in it for another 8-hour session. It was about 5 hours in, and my brother stops by. He lives in the same area, and he stops by and says, I just want to see what you're doing. I haven't heard from you for a few days. I was like, oh, I'm painting meat, you gotta come in. And so he walks in, and I kid you not, he walks in, because I was renting a small 2-bedroom house, and the 1-bedroom I was using as a studio. But he walks in to my house, and he goes, what's that smell? I was like, what smell? He's like, you don't smell that? I'm like, no. I was like, but I gotta show you my work. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, you don't smell it? I'm like, no. So I kid you not. So he goes and he goes like, come here. He drags me outside. He says, bit of breath of fresh air. I'm like, fine. Fine. And I went back into the house, and it was that feeling of like, I wonder where he hid the body. Because I had just been leaving this thing out for 8 hours every day, you know. And so we quickly, I wrapped it up, I put it back in the refrigerator because I'm still gonna eat that thing, you better believe it, you know. 3 days out, I don't care. But we put it out, and he had the best idea about putting them in chronological order, you know, so from day 1 to day 3. So we lined them up all along the lines, and the first day was great because there were reds, pinks, and beautiful, and marbling and everything. Second day, it started going a little gray. Third day, there were some greens coming in, some blues. I never thought I would see blue meat, you know, but we still ate that thing, I guarantee it, you know. But we had it there, and so he had the idea of putting them together, and I said that the works on the last day were the best because they were just rich and colored and beautiful, and just some areas that were drying, and everything is just beautiful, visceral, it was exciting. You know? So I ended up putting those aside, and I kept on working on this. Where it was going to take me, I have no idea. I would just keep on making meat paintings, you know. And I'd have my mom would come over. She'd say, "Mijo, what are you doing? You know, come on, go back to the picture of the pretty ladies, you know." I said, "I don't know. I just like this. I don't know what this is going to do." But you know, but there was really no connection for me. It was just pieces of meat. And so my mom calls me up. She says, "Your dad's making the tongue again. You want to come and have it?" I'm like, "Absolutely." South Texas staple, you know, I love lengua, but well, it has everything, you know. And so my dad made a mean taco of lengua. And so I went over there, and it hit me. It was like, this is what it has to do. You know, this is what I'm associated with. This is what I think about, you know. And it was much more than what initially was painting the meat, because it was just fun to paint, you know. Just beautiful carving into the paint and the meats, and the colors that were coming out. But then I started working towards food that was associated with my culture, you know, and so again, lengua, and just see what I could do with that. And it was really, and there's another one that's over there, but it was really the idea that when I see these, I don't think of meat. You know, it's the farthest thing I think of. When I see this, I think of family dinner. You know, I think of home. I think of tradition. I think of culture. You know, and so, and that's why I paint them so lovingly. And but so I've been doing these for a number of years, and ended up selling them. I was surprised about that, but you know, started getting some shows. Well, fast forward a little bit. My wife is pregnant with her first child, and it's about midnight, and I'm in my studio. She's pregnant. She calls me up, and again, it's midnight. She says, "I need a taco now." So you don't argue with a pregnant woman, you know. How you know about this one? Yeah. You don't argue. So if she wants a taco at midnight, you better go get it, you know. So I went and got in my car and started heading over there. But one of my regular stops that I would go to, and I would stop there occasionally because I'd ask them if I could take pictures of their food, you know, for these guys. But one of the stops I gone to, I guess, that I would regularly go to, which was underneath the street light. The street light was out, so the only light that was emitting from that blackness of space was the truck. And it almost looked from a distance, because I didn't really see the wheel, but from a distance it looked like it was just hovering, you know, and it was stunning just the way, see how it was just hovering. And so I literally stopped in the middle of the turning lane and got out and took some pictures, you know, with my phone. And I got so excited, I almost went home without the tacos. That would have been interesting. So I literally had to turn back around. I'm like, let me go back and get those, you know. And so I ran right in there, and she's eating, and I'm like, look at what I took, you know. And she's like, I'm too busy eating. And I just started making some sketches. And so since then, they've kind of taken off, you know, just really just kind of enjoying what they've become. You know, they're not, again, it's not the idea that they are that they're food trucks. They're much more than that. They're much more than just trucks that sell food or tacos or anything like that. There's something about it. And so I've done a lot of research, and there's the interesting notion about the idea about the family dinner, especially what the American idea of what the family dinner is. You know, in pre-18th century, there was no such thing as family dinner, because the dinner table or the dining room had not existed. There was no concept. That was a European notion. We didn't have any notion about that. So the dinner table the table that was used for food took on many different elements, and so it was used not only for the women would sew the dresses on, or they would, the men would actually hack up the meat on it, or actually do some woodworking on it. So it was everything but the dinner table. It was this multifunctional table, And so as a result of that, dinner time for families pre-18th century was really kind of just, if there was room for three, then three people got to sit down. Usually it was the men, not my rule, just letting you know. Usually it was the men and the women and the children would stand up like that, and so that's just how it kind of came about. And it really wasn't until, I would say 1777, when Thomas Jefferson built his estate, Monticello, which had the first dining room and dining table. Prior to that, it wasn't anything, it was a completely unknown concept. So prior to that, so after that, the elite started taking on Thomas Jefferson's idea about the dining room table, and then it took off, kind of trickled down to the middle class, and so beyond that, it really started taking form. And I'm going somewhere with this, so allow me with it, but the notion started evolving about what a dinner table with a dining room setting, family dinner was about. It was supposed to be a sense of community where you could come and air your grievances or talk to family or be honest, But that notion wasn't really taken on initially because it still had Victorian, again, it was still based on European sentiment, so it had the Victorian mindset of that the dinner table was supposed to be a place where you educate your children, teach them how to sit properly. That's how how you speak correctly. It was a lesson every single time. There was never an opportunity. You never spoke to your, or rather, you never spoke badly to your parents. You should now, but you never. Everything was supposed to be just very proper. And so that notion kind of evolved into what the idea about maybe dinner of the nuclear family during the 50s, with shows like Leave It to Beaver, where the children would be dressed up in their nice suits, and there's an old film, you can still find it, an educational film, the old one where they run like that, where it talks about, dinner time should be reserved for the man to be, sit at the head of the table, the women, the mother at the other end, the children sit nicely. It's always kind, respectful language, And I don't know about y'all, but dinner time for me was not like that, There was a lot of food fight, throwing, things like that, yelling and screaming, things like that, and so that notion kind of just had evolved beyond that. And so moving past this rigid notion of what dinner time is supposed to be, kind of evolved even further. But that leads me to what these have become to represent, in the sense that, actually, before I continue with that, I do want to kind of say something really quickly. Earlier, when y'all were upstairs, I had said thank y'all for letting me impede on your ceramics show here in your ceramics symposium. But I was thinking about what the commonality might be, right? And what it is to me might be the materials. We, both ceramics and painting, are using essentially the same core materials that have been used for thousands of years. So as a matter of fact, there's an old joke. There's an old saying that discussion about which came first, which art element came first. Was it the sculptor who made the tools, to hunt the animal, right? Or in our context, was it the ceramicist that made the bowl to hold the paint that the painter would use, Or was it the printmaker that made the print first, And so there's a lot of back and forth about which one it is, But since it's ceramics, I'm going to let y'all have this one, right? So, but it goes back to the element that it's all still the core materials that we use. Yeah, there's been advancements in technology in terms of materials, but for the most part, it's still the same stuff, But what amazes me is the element that, and I'm sure you've noticed this too, that even though we're using the same base materials, that it amazes me how much open-ended it is and what is possible with both mediums. And that's such a great thing to be able to explore, because, and I shoot myself in the foot every single time, because I'll go online constantly to see what else people are doing, and somebody will be doing something new in painting that I've been like, I tried my thing with that, That's okay. but it kind of evolves about that element of it. So, but going back to the idea about what the, actually real quick, I'm sorry, it always makes me think about what Louis Katz, our brilliant ceramics professor at Texas A&M in Corpus Christi, had said about it. He made a manifesto called "I Am a Clayer," and in it he talks about how, because he doesn't think it's fair that painters should call themselves painters because that's the root of what their medium is. He goes, so I'm stealing that notion. I'm going to call myself a clayer. So you'll have to ask him. I was hoping he was going to be here tonight, but you have to ask him further about it. He'll be here on Saturday, right?
Yes.
Saturday. So brilliant man. Kind of mind thinking bad spoons, you know. But going back to this notion, the idea about you know, this family dinner and how our culture has surpassed the necessity of family dinner sometimes. These spots, these little locales almost become that. They become locations for community, you know, this communal gathering that you go. And I've interviewed and spoken with a lot of food stand and taco truck owners who have said that about 90%, usually all they all have the same about the number, but 90% of their business comes from the regulars who regularly come back, you know. And so it becomes this idea about family again, going back to the idea about family and community, you know, this core group of what we get together for, you know. And so, and I've visited a number of these places and I've known some of them so well, and it's just been great to see. And I've actually done portraits of the people behind the counters as well, too, and so some of their family members too, just because it's fun. But the idea that they are a meeting place, you know, they are something welcoming. The first night that I saw one of these without any light source, you know, above, and just the light source emitting from the truck, it was still that sense of welcoming, you know, it was that sense of warmth. You know, come here, you know, and so, which goes back to the idea of what a dinner time, a family dinner time could be, you know. Not always is, I know that, but, you know, but could be, you know, a place to be comfortable with, and at least air your grievances, and at least put stuff out on the table, not just food, you know. So they've kind of taken on this element of this sense of community, this sense of family, as I said, this communal gathering, and I've really kind of embraced those notions of it. And they've kind of gathered from, if you look over there at some of the other pieces, some of the stands, I'll include figures. Sometimes I'll include the figures kind of hidden in there, or sometimes they'll be more prominent. But they've really just kind of gathered, taken on a life of their own. And I've gotten in numerous locations, Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, and just fallen in love with some of these events, you know. So now it's become this thing. The taco trucks, the food trucks have become this thing, to the point where it's actually becoming more popular than the brick and mortar fast food joints, you know. And they're overtaking it. And you think about what they can do with the sense of low overhead, you know, movable to go from location to location. Although you know that in Chicago, they have a law that you can't be within a certain amount of space of a fast food restaurant. So they've had to be really committed to their food truck culture is non-existent almost, which is a shame. Come on, Chicago, you know. But so the idea that they've actually kind of taken on this new life, you know, for me, it's been really exciting. And but what was I going with that before I mentioned Chicago? Sorry about that. Nonetheless, they've kind of become this notion about every place I go, there's always something. They become so popular, and they're taking over. That's what I was going. They're taking over the fast food. But what they offer you is the sense of community, the sense of family, and homemade food, handmade food, right there in front of you. You can't get that, you know. So I've been rambling a lot. I'm sorry. Let me open it up some questions. Anybody have any questions? Yes. Hi.
Have you done any introspection in terms of, and I know this is a pretty general category.
It's okay, I'll take it.
Edward Hopper and like comparisons of
Yeah.
his commentary with his work on that time period and your commentary on your work on.
Great question, and while I haven't really actively pursued it, I have, you know, very familiar with with his work and have actually had people compare the work, and so I can see that, and I'll take it, absolutely. I will take it, but yeah, there's a sense of that kind of peeking in, one thing that I didn't mention about the meat pieces is that right now I only have the two lenguas here, but as I've said, and I know you've all seen them before in classes, I've done tripas and things of that sort, and so, but they're the food that is not so much anymore, but at the time were considered the more common food, the more lower class food. And I remember when I was younger, my dad would go and pick up some machitos. Does anybody know what machitos are? For those of you who don't know what it is literally, I think it's the lung, the heart, other things, and it's just wrapped in the small intestines, and it's a packed meat about this big. It's delicious. It's delicious. But I remember my dad picking them up for like $2 for $3. Now you go to HEB, and I think it's $2 for $15. Because now they've taken on this idea that everybody wants their culinary treat. So, but I do embrace the element of what what they are. That it is more common food. It's more food of the lower class. Not so much so anymore because they've kind of taken on a life of food. And I kind of akin that to some of these locations too. Some may think that they're lower class, but they're still just exquisite. So I'm sorry. I'll tell you quickly. I had somebody had asked about this earlier. I was doing a whole budgeting for about a year, and I have no idea how he had received or got word, but I got a call from somebody who had said, I have a client who's interested, or I have a person who's interested in your work, or wants to see your work. And I said, sure. So I sent the images, and it turns out it was Cheech Maria's assistant, And so, just because it's a funny story, but I sent him about 10 images, and he bought all 10, And so, and I was like, why? Why would you do that, You got a good eye, why would you do that, And so, but I had the chance to talk with him, and he said, I get it, it's the same thing. I see me, I see home, There's a great little video you can find online where he's opening some of those pieces, and he says, and he's talking to the curator of the Getty, he's there, and he's saying, he's like, I remember Mom cooking this for dinner, And so that idea that it is personal, so it is personal. So, but I'm sorry. Questions? Anybody have some questions?
Mr. Peña, I was wondering because you did mention a lot about the dinner table,
Yeah.
the taco trucks, the lure of the light, the intimacy is what I got. Is that intimate sense of family, and what I find really interesting is your work. In terms of the sense of scale, I think I've been seeing a lot of painters take that route, a very large scale painting that seems to be all about bravado, and your paintings have these very small, intimate scales. Is there something there in terms of the size of the paintings, or is it just because of the technical aspect of the media you're working with?
A little bit of everything, I still love big work. But I've always been a fan of small work. There's just something precious about small pieces. And plus, with twins, I can make more small work. But more so than that, there's something intimate about works, about smaller pieces, and there's something precious about it. And so I've always been a big fan of it. When I was living in New York, I only could do small work because I didn't have space for large pieces. But and as a matter of fact, a funny little side note, I was in a show once, and this woman came up to me, and she said, I really like your work. I said, thank you. She goes, yeah, it reminds me of the bathroom. Does it look like poop or something? What do you mean, And she was like, no, the bathroom is a very intimate, private space, that's your little space, even from the chaoticity of the family that's outside, you can close the door, you still have that private space. I said, you could have said that instead of the bathroom, but I'll take it regardless, But so there is an intimacy in the smaller work, but there is something engaging in the large-scale bravado pieces too. So right now, the biggest I've gone has been about 75 by 75, and they still hold presence. but I'm still quite taken with smaller pieces, so. Anybody have a question? Did I answer that question? Just make sure. Ask away. You can ask. Yeah.
So are these locations personal experiences for you? Like
Most of
places
them.
that you frequent or?
Yeah, most of them are. I've got hundreds of photographs of different locations, but then I've got a lot of friends who will, from time to time, take a snapshot with their phone and send something to me, and so I'll take that, and use that. And most of the time, I'm not doing it directly, but merely as reference, and kind of play with the imagery that way, see what I can do. Sometimes I'll eliminate most of the exterior just so I can concentrate on the light, or sometimes I'll include the exterior a little bit more, or sometimes like this one, it is just, there's something interesting going on with the dynamic between this possible conversation that's going on here, but actually, in addition to the whole composition as a whole, what dialogue is going on, what's going on there, so. And a lot of that also has to do with the mark making, it's the immediacy of mark making that I'm really fascinated with, so, not in all pieces, but in some of them.
It would make sense. They read as very like intimate and sentimental to me.
Yeah, and they are, and they can be. But then some yell. There's one over there with the pink light, and that was just screaming. And I just wanted it, I wanted that one to still remain somewhat resolute, but still screaming, Very much like I am every week with my twins, so. I hold composure, but still screaming inside, so. So, anyways, did they answer your question?
Yeah, thank
Okay,
you.
good. I would like to say that Amanda and I were talking about this earlier, and if you haven't had the chance to go see their exquisite show upstairs, you have to. It's stunning. But that we have Gregory Teagard, who is at one extreme of the stunning, massive earthenware that he has, and then mine in this other direction, right? I think Amanda's right there. Nice little midway between this kind of this strong earthenware and then this painting sensibility, which I'm still fascinated about how you get some of those colors. Geez, just they're glowing, So, and of course, while you're, geez, those things are brown. Yeah. So, but yes, does anybody else have any questions? Well, I would like to say thank you to Gina. I mean, it was up to her that put together this amazing show, both shows. So beautiful job. I'm willing to help out too. And thank you so much for allowing me to be here and chat. And if you have any other questions, please let me know. And I'm pretty sure a lot of you are pretty hungry and say, talking about food, can we eat some of the food now?
Yeah, help yourself to some food. And I also want to say that in Building B, there's another show, as everyone knows, but it's a collaborative show of
collaborative work from
10 different
schools plus STC. From
That's right.
As far east as Pennsylvania and west as us, maybe Missouri. There's an interesting mix, I think.
It's pretty good. I think it's one of the best years. So you guys should go there too, and tell them to come over here.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.